Let's see. Appreciate all you guys jumping on here, getting ready to record our podcasts here in just a bit. Let's see. Let me pull up comments too so I can see. Hey, Jason. Hey, Gabe. Hey, Dominic. Hey, username 88Doyen. Good to see you on here. Getting ready to get that. Hey, Sean. Good to see you. Recording episode 23 of all the podcasts today, so kind of gearing up for that, giving you all a behind-the-scenes look of everything. With that, we're going to be streaming on YouTube. We'll be streaming on Facebook here in just a bit, so we'll be doing that. If you want to let me know once Facebook's up too, John, I know you'll get that tuned up in the back, so just waiting on that. And then we'll get rolling. Podcast 20, episodes 23. By the way, hopefully you've been listening to the private pilot podcast, the instrument pilot podcast, the commercial pilot podcast, and the CFI, the certificated flight instructor podcast as well. Just some great stuff, new episodes, recording really behind the scenes, kind of the making of each week, so you all can kind of just get to see behind the scenes here. Let me pop out this YouTube chat here. So I'll close that. I got the YouTube chat here so I can see that. Someone was asking about if we do 141. So I'm not an actual flight school. We are just an online ground school. That is what we actually specialize in. So that is kind of our forte there. So I got YouTube comments up. John's going to airplay me some Facebook comments as well, so we can get those up. I'm going to get ready to go into podcast mode, and we will roll. Let's see. Got my tea here as well. How are you guys doing? Everybody ready for the holidays, ready for Christmas? Hopefully decent weather. It's 80 degrees in Florida today, so that's always exciting. Let's see if I've gotten anything. John's working on getting that on the big screen back behind us there in a bit. That's going live. It's weird to look back and kind of see yourself, but there I am. So that's cool. So I'll be able to see comments over there. So let me pull up Facebook over here as well, just so I can see comments as well. So Facebook, YouTube, whatever your preferred means of watching this, you can do that. And then I'm going to go ahead and go into podcast mode here in a bit. I don't have that live on my page just yet. Keep refreshing. John has it back there. Perfect. Great, great, great. Awesome. Neat. All right. Let's go ahead. Let me grab a sip of tea. So let me talk about what we're going to do here first before I do that. Recording behind the scenes episodes 23 of our podcast. So for the private pilot podcast, the topic today is improving landings. So anything you all want to add to that? I'm going to talk obviously about chair flying, envisioning the pattern. What I talked about all in this week's video too. Perfect landing starts with the perfect pattern. Airspeed is king. You guys all know the mantra. You've watched enough M0A videos to certainly know that. Improving landings. Anything you guys want to add to that, I'd be happy to add some of those in there. So let me know about that as well. Hey Joel, good to see you on Facebook watching as well. For the instrument pilot podcast, the topic is single pilot instrument flying. Talking about a lot of SRM techniques, so be thinking of that. For the commercial pilot podcast, I'm going to talk about studying and preparing for the commercial pilot knowledge test. And then for the CFI, the certificated flight instructor podcast, I'm going to talk about students' age, and does age really matter when working with student pilots, too young, too old, anything possible there. So that's what we're going to be discussing here. I'm gonna get ready to go into podcast mode. So you can save, you can certainly comment. I got Facebook will be playing behind me here. YouTube I have pulled up on my computer. Let me get all my audio set up. It looks like it's working here. Let me get ready to knock this out. Headphones going on. ANR going on. All right, let's start recording. You get to see kind of how I do this all behind the scenes. Just something a little bit different. All right, so that's recording. Hey, Tom, by the way, for those of you watching live, Tom's the gentleman who edits everything and makes all these podcasts happen. So if you run into Tom at one of our shows, be sure to thank him. Tom, this is Private Pilot Podcast 23. The title is Improving Landings. And the description, I like the description of what are some things you can do to improve your landings. I'm going to grab a sip of tea, and then we'll go ahead and get started with that. What are some things you can do to improve your landings? Hey everyone, Jason Schappert here of M0A.com, and you're listening to the Private Pilot Podcast, brought to you by our #1 rated online ground school, GroundSchoolAcademy.com. Complete private pilot, not only knowledge test prep, but check ride prep, and most importantly, setting you out to make you that safe real-world pilot, that safe real-world operator. That's what we're truly after in this case. Today's topic is this idea of improving your landings. If I had to look at our YouTube page, at our Facebook page, and guess what is the most popular topic that we discuss, the most frequently requested topic, it always comes down to landings. That's not just at the private pilot level, it's really at all levels. But especially private pilots, because that first solo cross country, whatever it may be, can oftentimes make us quite nervous going into that. So what are some ways to improve our landings? And I have videos out like, 3 easy tips to improve your landings. We're going to talk about a lot of these things, but it's going to give me a chance here in this forum, on this podcast, to elaborate on a lot of that. And one of the best tips I can offer when working to improve our landings is to chair fly, to envision the entire pattern. Really, envision the entire pattern down to the radio calls, the physical aspects of it. What would I do? What would I say? Where would my hands be in the airplane? Where would I be looking to really and truly chair fly it? You want to take that a step further. And this is an idea that we basically stole from the Blue Angels, because the Blue Angels do this. I remember I was a young kid. I was out at Sun and Fun, and the Blue Angels were at Sun and Fun that year. And I remember you can only get so close. So I wanted to get as close as I could to see their airplanes. And sure enough, I didn't get to just see the airplanes. The Blue Angels were also out there on the ramp. But what was so funny, so interesting, is they were on the ramp in front of their airplanes, but they were standing as if they were really flying in their positions. #1 was in his spot, #7 was over here, and everybody was in their proper positions. And they were walking. And they were literally walking in sync. And the captain, the commander would give the call, and they would smoke on. You could see them literally reach down for where the switch would be. And they're walking. They all make the same left turn, and #7 breaks off for the sneak pass. And they're all just moving about the ramp as if they were really in their aircraft, but they're walking through it in slow motion. The same radio calls are being said. The hands are being placed where they were to bring back the throttle, to turn the smoke on, to pull inverted, whatever it is. They were literally chair flying. They were literally out there on the ramp walking through this. So how can you go out to the ramp, go to your backyard, go to your driveway, and let's draw a runway with chalk on the driveway. Let's spray paint one on the the grass of the backyard, whatever it takes, and walk the traffic pattern. Okay, I'm rolling down runway 36. I've already made my radio call. It would sound like this. And as I'm rolling, I'm smoothly applying some full power. My toes are sliding down to the bottom of the pedals. My heels hit the floor. I can feel that left turning tendency taking me a little bit, so I'm adding that right rudder in there. I'm watching my airspeed, confirm airspeed's alive, glance at my engine instruments, confirm engine gauge is all green. I'm committed to this takeoff. There's 55, there's 60, rotate. And I smoothly pull back on that yoke, establish that positive rate of climb. I'm looking to climb out at 75 as I accelerate. And you can see as we're chair flying, as we get to the crosswind, if it's a pilot-controlled airport, you're making your radio calls. Denell and Marion County traffic, Skyhawk 23, Mike Zulu's turn left crosswind, runway, whatever it is, runway 23, Denell and Marion County. And you're making all these radio calls as if you were really doing it. You're leveling off, you're anticipating these things. You're chair flying your traffic pattern. If you followed myself and the M0A.com team here for any amount of time, you know the saying that I preach so much. It's the airplane is a terrible classroom. It's noisy. It is hot. There's not a lot of air conditioning up there, right? And it's moving too quickly, and it's very, very expensive. Right? It's an expensive classroom to sit in. Let's learn everything we can on the ground, and that also goes for our landings. That's something else we can focus on, we can work on, are those landings here. Walk out the traffic pattern, draw it on the ground, make it and walk the traffic pattern. Let me ask you a question now to ponder here. Where does a good landing start? Some could say, listen, a good landing starts back on the ground, right? Put it in the proper groundwork. Some would say a good landing starts on the takeoff. A good landing starts on the downwind. And all of those are correct, because you have to understand the mantra I've been preaching for so long is a perfect landing starts with a perfect pattern. You can't expect to have a perfect landing every time if your pattern is different every time. If one time you're wide on downwind, then you're too tight, then you extend, and then you come straight, whatever it is. We have to always strive for that perfect pattern. And I know it doesn't always work out that way. I know at a controlled field, they'll often vector us in and bring us different places and have us on a straight in, call me on 2-mile left base. I understand. But we have to be willing, we have to be ready, we have to be able to adapt in this case. That's just something else to really ponder here. Let's go back to that downwind though. On that downwind, I have to stabilize this airplane all the way through the descent. I shoot for my airspeeds, right? You want to be, I say, 90, 80, 70. Again, I'm talking miles per hour, in my aircraft. So be mindful of that as well. And again, it's going to vary from aircraft to aircraft. It's going to vary from condition to condition. I might want to be faster. I might come with less flaps if it's windier, if it's a shorter field, if it's a bigger field, if I want to land long. There's so many variables here, but have the airspeeds that you're striving for, the goals, because you can't just set 90 on downwind and hold it all the way to the numbers. I don't know if you saw the video recently that I did, the 3 easy ways, 3 tips to improve your landings, I believe it's called, on YouTube and on Facebook. And I show you what too fast of an approach looks like. I come across the numbers at 85. 85 doesn't sound unreasonable in a 172. 85 doesn't sound like it's too terribly fast. But watch the 1,500 feet of runway that I leave behind me. That's what you have to be mindful of in this case. So learning to stabilize all the way. The other thing is to learn the wind correction. And it's not just, we oftentimes just think of wind correction on final. Wind correction on final approach, but it's more than that. And obviously, it's a big part of it. It's a big part of striving to land on center line. But you're forgetting about the wind correction on downwind. The wind correction that could be, you could have that perfect distance from the runway on the downwind. Not too close, not too far away, but if you have a crosswind, you're getting blown away or you're getting blown closer to it, and it's going to screw up your base, because if you're getting blown closer, you're not going to have a base. It's going to be so short. If you're getting blown further away, you're going to be flying a bomber pattern on this big wide base, and you're going to have to be adding power in because you've lost too much altitude. You have to make these adjustments. You have to be mindful of where the wind is coming from. Be mindful as well that if you are dealing with a crosswind, I talked about how it affects your downwind. How does it affect your base now? You're either into a headwind or into a tailwind. What does that do to your glide ratio? What does a tailwind do to the glide characteristics of your aircraft? It's not helping a whole lot, and it's pushing you forward. There's a greater chance of overshooting final because you have that tailwind. It's going to blow you right on through that turn. As opposed to a headwind, you're going to bring that power back, and you're going to feel like you're not making any progress across the ground out there on base sometimes, and it could undershoot final. Be mindful. We're stabilizing the aircraft, but being mindful of that proper wind correction. And let's be honest too. Sometimes not every CFI teaches the way we need. And this is a big thing I talk about in the CFI, the Certificated Flight Instructor podcast, that we had to be able to adapt our teaching styles, but not everybody does that. Not everybody listens to the CFI podcast. Not every CFI does, at least. So you might want to find it beneficial to yourself to fly with another CFI if you find yourself struggling with landings. Fly with a different CFI he or she may give a different perspective to really help you out, to be more mindful of that. Consider flying with a different CFI. But if I had to summarize it on improving landings, you've heard me say it a million times, but I promise you it's going to click one day. A perfect landing starts with a perfect traffic pattern. The next is to stabilize that airplane. Understand airspeed is king. Know and manage those airspeeds throughout that traffic pattern. Know the target and the goal airspeeds throughout that traffic pattern. And lastly, I teach to lose the word flare in this case. That is a big part of it here. Lose the word flare in this case. So listen, appreciate all that you guys do. Thank you for being just such a blessing to myself, my beautiful family, this great team here at m0a.com. Thank you for making this podcast one of the top listened podcasts in iTunes. So enjoy the rest of your day, and most importantly, remember, a good pilot is always learn. Have a great day, guys. We'll see ya. All right, that's all finished here. One thing to fix, John, too, we need to fix our Facebook stream, because you're streaming to the Jason Schappert personal Facebook, I think, not the M0A Facebook. I was looking at it going, we really don't have a whole lot of viewers in this case. I'm sure all my friends appreciate watching the podcast, but anyways, so let's switch that up. Let me save this. We're going to go into instrument pilot podcast mode here in a bit. Let's see here. And for those of you on Facebook that want to keep watching, we're switching over to the M0A Facebook.